Stem cell research has been around for nearly 3 decades. From its inception, it has created a huge controversy regarding the moral and ethical dilemmas. Let's take a look at a little bit of the history behind this line of research and how the mass controversy came to be. So, where did stem cell research begin? According to the University of Nebraska Medical Center, scientists discovered ways to derive embryonic stem cells from early mouse embryos nearly 30 years ago. In 1981, the detailed study of the biology of mouse stem cells led to the discovery in 1998 of a method to derive stem cells from human embryos and grow the cells in the laboratory. By 2001, current President Bush signed an order authorizing federal funds to be used for the research on existing human embryonic stem cell lines. This was major because President Bush was a Republican president, and the Republican Party has made itself clear as a staunch pro-life group. So him stating that federal funds could be used for this research was major, but many assume it was just because the embryos had existed for a long time, and he wasn't saying that new embryos could be used for this research. And by the early 2000s, pro-life groups all around the country have taken their stances against the use of stem cell research. Which brings me back to my next point, why exactly people view this process as immoral. People view this as the destruction of human life. Many believe, whether or not their views are based on religion, that life begins at conception. With this being said, the idea of creating an embryo just to destroy it and take one small part of it is unethical. As mentioned in the Harvard Stem Cell Institute article, for those who hold this view, extracting stem cells from a blastocyst is as morally abhorrent as harvesting organs from a baby to save other people's lives. This is a position of Senator Sam Brownback, Republican of Kansas, a leading advocate of the right to life position. In Brownback's view, a human embryo is a human being just like you and me, and it deserves the same respect that our laws give us all. If Brownback is right, then embryonic stem cell research is immoral because it amounts to killing a person to treat another person's disease, which is exactly what this boils down to. Who can decide who gets to end a life in order to save other people's lives? Biologist Vicky Mozo also mentions in a 2011 issue of Biology Online, first and foremost, embryonic stem cells are a potential for life. The embryonic part ignites multifarious debates stemming from the lack of consensus regarding the meaning, bounds, and sense of life. Questions such as when does life start and end, and does an embryonic stem cell implicate life or not, are huge parts of this debate. As aforementioned, many people see this line of research to be taking a life to give a life. And again, I mention, well, who gets to decide that? Many religious folks would say only the divine being that they believe in would be able to decide that. Non-religious people might just say no one on earth should be able to decide who gets to live or die. Let's take another look at another reason concerning this line of research. Female consent. There was a rise in concern regarding consent of materials used for the research when the idea began gaining traction in the scientific world. As Bernard Lowe and Lindsay Parham mentioned in the 2009 issue of Endocrine Society, in the U.S., federal regulations on research permit a waiver of informed consent for the research of a use of identified biological materials that cannot be linked to donors. Thus, logistically, it would be possible to carry out the embryo and stem cell research on de-identified materials without consent. And then the Utah Genetics Learning Center also mentions scientists receive leftover embryos from fertility clinics with consent from donors. Most people agree that these guidelines are appropriate. Disagreements surface, however, when political parties debate how to fund the research. The federal government allocates billions of dollars each year to biomedical research. But should taxpayer dollars be used for this line of research when the taxpayer does not agree and finds it unethical and immoral? This has been talked about many times. The debate boils down to the problem with using virtually another human's DNA in a process without their consent they can possibly view as morally wrong. And then if the person is not giving DNA, should they be funding a process which they find wrong and possibly against their religion? Now that I have informed you of the history and moral dilemma behind this line of research, my peer Ibrahim will inform you of the benefits of this line of research.